Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I'm Cliffy D. You can find me on Twitter at Cliffy D.
And I'm Tim Capper. You can also find me on Twitter, but at Repact. That's REPPACT. And this episode of the podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code FlightDeck-10 at checkout, you will save 10% on your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, get your new merch, use the code, and save some money.
And the Alouettes Flightdeck is all over the internets. You can follow us on Twitter at AlouettesFLDeck. Find us on Instagram at Alouettes Flightdeck. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/AlouettesFlightDeckPod. And make sure you head over to www.alouettesflightdeck.ca to check out an entire archive of episodes, interviews, and so much more. And yes, you can find us on YouTube over at youtube.com/AlouettesFlightDeck.
What a couple weeks. A week. It's very rare that we have to take a week off because one of us is sick. And it would have been very funny if we would have done it last week. I would have been talking to myself. But I'm glad you're better, buddy. It's all that matters. And we're here to talk football.
I think a lot of people might be happy to have my big mouth shut, but yeah, Mother Nature decided that for me, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well,
but guess what? I'm back.
That's right.
I'm back and better than ever.
That's right.
Well, the jury might be out on that one.
No, okay.
But I digress.
Yeah. Hey, dude, and I just have to throw this out now. This episode, even though we are in our 8th season, by the way, this is episode 190. Frickin' 90. We're this close to 200.
Oh, man. I don't know what we're going to do for number 200 because, for the 100th episode, we had Ben Cahoon on, and that was amazing. Mm-hmm. For episode 113, we had to have the GOAT, Anthony Calvillo. Mm-hmm. But 200, holy moly.
Got to think about it.
Yeah, we got time, thankfully, but it is creeping up on us. So you know, folks, that we will have something special for episode 200. You can guarantee that.
Yeah, or hey, send us ideas over on social. Email me at tim.capper@alouettesflightdeck.ca or what is your email?
It's cliffyd.pine@alouettesflightdeck.ca.
There you go.
Or just hit it up on socials. Either way is fine.
Exactly. Great interview. Stay tuned. We were very proud and just honored to be having an extended interview with Alouettes general manager Danny Maciocia. He answers some questions that we've been wondering for quite a long time, but also gives us some inside looks at what he's gone through over this past couple of months. And again, just stay tuned. It's something you need to listen to. But leading into that, interesting things that have occurred. Oh, my God. And now, obviously, if you're an Alouettes fan, you know exactly what's happened over the past couple of weeks. But so we're not going to go into it in that much depth. But as everybody knows, on February 14th, 2023, it was announced that the CFL was taking over ownership of the Alouettes for the second time in just a couple of years. If anybody knows and the situation and had followed us on social, we teased something, Cliff. We weren't able to expound on it more, but it being this far in the future now, we're able to actually say something about it, aren't we? Yeah,
we were basically handed a news bomb, if you will, and trying to get confirmation on it. And of course, we deal with the cone of silence all the time here in Montreal. And boy, if we thought we had a cone of silence before, we had it even bigger now, because now a lot of people got very, very tight-lipped when they found out that we knew that the CFL was going to be taking back ownership of the Alouettes, and hopefully new local owners will be found. So yeah, this was kind of dropped in our laps, and yeah,
And also, by the way, Cody Fajardo. We can't forget that either. We were also informed before it was announced that the Owls were going to be signing Cody Fajardo.
Yeah, and this was in wake of the news that came out during the CFL tamping period that Trevor Harris was essentially going to peace out of Montreal and go sign a massive contract with the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and taking Jake Winicki along with him. That was pretty big right there too. And a lot of what's come out, and now, as you said, it's been a couple of weeks now, so I mean, pretty much everything's come out in the wash. But essentially, what it all boiled down to was the fact that because of the instability of the ownership group that was in place in Montreal, with the Sid Spiegel estate and Gary Stern as minority owner, essentially, what it came down to was they didn't want to run a football team anymore, and as such, basically handcuffed the Alouettes into not being able to negotiate with people during the free agency tampering period, and also not allowing the team to sign any contracts that would involve signing bonuses.
Yeah.
Thus, not allowing any potential of the big name free agents to stay here in Montreal. They would essentially listen to other offers, and quite a few people decided that, you know what? Between the kerfuffle going on with ownership and the instability and everything else that's been going on, I'm just going to take my talents elsewhere. And as a result, we ended up losing a few of our popular and well-known players. And again, that could have happened no matter what. When it comes to free agency, anything is possible.
Yeah. By
that same token, the Alouettes could have signed a whole bunch of players, but because everything was just so murky, there was just no concrete answer as to what's going on. I mean, fans were pissed off. Fans wanted to know what the hell was going on, and there was just no answers up until free agency day. Like the actual February 14th is when it was made official that the CFL was taking back ownership of the Montreal Alouettes in hopes of finding new ownership, hopefully local. And as such, the team had the league had reinstated Mario Cecchini as the interim president of the Montreal Alouettes to help oversee the day-to-day operations of the team, as well as to help facilitate any new ownership. So it's kind of bittersweet because, yes, we're happy to have Mario back kind of running the show, so to speak, even if it is on a quote-unquote interim basis. I have to believe that whatever ownership group comes on board will want to retain Mario's services, if only for someone who knows what the hell he's doing and has done an exemplary job thus far in his tenure. Yeah. But I mean, fans were pissed off. Like Alouettes fans were just left confused, shocked, angry, bitter even. I mean, some of the vitriol I'd seen online was just so angry and discouraging. And who the hell could blame them? I mean, it's so maddening to see that things have devolved to this point. I mean, this team was one game away from going to the Grey Cup. We thought we had this team in place. Like it was just a matter of, okay, we've come to accept, okay, Trevor Harris, he's going to be the guy. Is he the future? Obviously not. Not at his age, but he's proven himself to be more than capable quarterback that could still lead this team as they decide which direction they want to go in as far as the future. Geno Lewis. I mean, you talk about generational talent. That is Eugene Lewis to a T. This is a guy, as far as I'm concerned, should have been a Montrealer for life. He should have been Alouette for life. They should have found a way to make sure that he stayed an Alouette for life, full stop. That didn't happen. I mean, understandably, fans are going to be frustrated and disenfranchised with this organization. And the fact that there's absolute radio silence from anyone, from the team, from the ownership group, what have you, even from the league, like, just seemed like nobody had an answer. And that's just aggravating. That's just beyond aggravating as far as I'm concerned. Just to have no answers and let everybody twist in the wind. Finding out now that the team couldn't sign anybody as if there's a signing bonus involved. So I mean, you've got a couple of deals were done, and that's great. There's a couple of players that I'm very happy the Alouettes were able to retain. But when you're looking at the big name players, like the guys that should have been a part of this team and are no longer, and it really just came down to the fact that Danny Maciocia, the general manager of the Alouettes, was unable to do his job because he didn't know where the money was going to come from. He didn't know if he was going to be allowed to sign these contracts. Like, there was just nothing was clear. Everything was clear as mud as from what we've been told. And can you blame Alouettes fans for being pissed off? Could you blame them for being upset and having absolutely no faith in this organization? I sure as hell can't. I mean,
no, it's very frustrating because I think we're at a point, and I think to me it even goes back to to 2021. When the league for that and the whole situation with Vernon Adams, VA gets traded, and think we thought he was the future, and then Trevor Harris was doing really well for the team, and we were look what we did, look at the team was able to do at the last half of the season last year. of that run that we made, and then we lose him, and then we lose our backup quarterback. I mean, we were down to one quarterback. I mean, nothing against Davis Alexander, but which we think he can easily become a huge star in the CFL. But we were down to one QB, and I find, the historian that I am, and the supporter that I am of the Alouettes, I don't ever remember an Alouettes offseason where we are down to one quarterback.
Yeah.
No matter if he was first, second, or third string, just down to one quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating. Frustrating. Everything that we had gained, we lost. The momentum, all the momentum, we just lost.
And I talked about this. I mean, think about the people who, at the end of the season last year, disappointed we didn't get to the Alouettes didn't go to the Grey Cup, but still walked away feeling good about this team, how far they were able to go, what they were able to accomplish. And they said, okay, if this is the team I'm in, I want to be a part of this. And they bought the season tickets. They bought the merch. They bought all that, thinking it was going to be the same in 2023.
Yeah, that comeback in the second half of the Eastern Final. Just one play and one penalty away, potentially, from tying that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You take all of that momentum, and at that point, and then bringing in Jason Mosh as the head coach, getting things stabilized in that area. I mean, this team was selling hope to their fans. They were promising this team, okay, they're promising a good, solid, competitive team, and then it just all went to shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry to say. I mean, they didn't renew Mario Cecchini's contract, so he left. As a result, nobody could get anything done, apparently, when it came to signing players. Guys were just being offered the bare minimum and hope you guys, will come back and play for us. Like, you can't operate like that. Like, it's what it all comes down to, though, is that the fans of this team were sold a bill of goods by the ownership group, by Randy Ambrosie, and by the Alouettes themselves. And it sucks. It's such a slap in the face. And you wonder, and people wonder why you don't support the Alouettes wonder why people don't support them. You give them nothing to support. Mm-hmm. That's the frustrating part. It's like you're flinging poo in their face over and over again, and then you wonder why they're mad. You wonder why people get frustrated, why people are so cynical online about this team and the future, and making jokes about the Concords and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, no wonder people are frustrated. You give them nothing. You spit in their face, and then you wonder why they're mad. I mean, don't insult people's intelligence. And you know what? And I even said it at one point. It's like, you know what? You really want this team to understand? You really want this ownership group to understand? Because the only thing they understand is dollars and cents. And I even went so far as to say, you know what? You're not happy with the way this team is run? Put a stop payment on your season tickets if you're on a payment plan. Refuse to buy merch. Refuse to support. I mean, you got to hit them in the pocketbook. And guess what? It looks like Stern and company decided, you know what? We don't want this anymore. It's too much of a hassle. It's too much. This was supposed to be fun. It's not fun. So we're going to take our ball and go home. And you know what? Fine. Go. Sorry. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out, as far as I'm concerned.
The positive bit about this is that as of late, it's been reported, I think it was at one point there were 5 groups that was being looked at. And if I'm not mistaken, most, if not all, were local or within Quebec. And it was reported in the media just, I think about a week ago or a couple of days ago that, it looks like the CFL and this group have gone into an exclusivity period between them in buying the team. What that will equate to, we don't know. Because it may have been the same way with the other groups prior to Stern and Siegel buying the team a few years ago.
Well, and the one thing I've said is I just hope that whoever the ownership group or groups are, make sure they're vetted properly. Like, I understand the league doesn't want to carry the Alouettes team into the season. I get that, but at the same time, look what happened the last time you went and and basically handed the keys to the kingdom over to someone just because they had a boatload of money and that raw gumption to try to run a team and gather support and all that nonsense. Mm-hmm. Like clearly it didn't work. So my hope, and believe me, my confidence level right now in the league and Randy Ambrosie is less than 0. But I'm sorry. I mean, like just the ham-handed handling of this, and then also to drop the news of this on free agency date. Like, you don't think the day was busy enough as it is? You couldn't have announced this sooner. You couldn't have announced and found a way for the team. Like now all of a sudden you can tell the Alouettes, oh yeah, now you can sign players to contracts. They'll be honored, blah, blah, blah. You basically, as I said, you basically handcuffed Danny Maciocia and didn't allow him to do his job until it was too late. By then, the big name free agents that you couldn't even talk to during the tampering period, they've made their decision. The players like Eugene Lewis, Trevor Harris, and so on, they're like, okay, well, you guys don't know your ass from your elbow, so bye. And that they're elsewhere now. I mean, like their minds were clearly made up. I mean, at that point, like God.
I mean, you can't fault Gino for signing with Edmonton for the amount of money that he did. I mean, in our conversation that we had a couple months ago, we knew, it was, he won. As I said to Gino in my tweet to him when he made the official announcement, I said, it's not goodbye. It's we'll see you later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What will be the case in 2 years? We don't know.
We don't. And he said he wants to secure the bag, and he sure did. And more power to him. I'm so proud of him for doing that.
Yeah.
Could the Montreal Alouettes have matched it? Possibly. We'll never know, unfortunately. And again, given the ham-handed way everything was handled from the league down, I certainly don't blame Gino for saying, you know what, I just don't trust any of this. Mm-hmm. I just don't. I mean, this is a guy who's given his all for the city for the past few years, and he's been through, he stuck by at some of the lower points of this team, but sooner or later you got to get paid, and you want to build something. And I think that's what it is that he looks at what's going on in Edmonton and Chris Jones and the way he's retooling this Edmonton Elks organization. And I think he sees the guys he's going to be playing with now. And I have no doubt in my mind, Gino is going to be excited, and he's looking to become even more of a superstar. It's just that now, instead of doing it here in Montreal, he's going to go out there and do it in Edmonton. And you know what? Don't be surprised if Gino's the reason why they finally get their first home win in I guess now it's 4 years. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't surprise me. I think the Elks have made some significant changes, and I think it's going to pay off sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah. But again, we're hoping to hear some more about the Alouettes ownership, whoever this new group is going to be. Will Mario be involved? I think fans around the city know what Mario did for the team, so it would be nice to have him back. But I guess again we'll find out. It'll be up to the new ownership group, and stay up to date on our socials, because if we maybe we can break something. Who knows? But we're talking about the players itself. I mean, let's look at the positives here, because we were able to retain, even with all the I want to use another word, but I'll just call it shenanigans that occurred with the whole change of ownership and then can't spend money and blah, blah, blah. You got to admit, though, dude, who we were able to retain and sign, for free agents from other teams, I think we did pretty well. And this training camp's going to be so interesting.
It certainly will. That's for sure. I have to say there were a couple of moves that were signed, moves that were made, I should say, and players signed that I'm not mad at. I'm certainly not mad at. I mean, where do we want to start? I guess
let's start with who we were able to keep.
All right.
Because I think you really have gone over the major names that we have lost in free agency.
Yeah.
Gino, Jake, and Trevor.
Yeah.
And no slight to the other guys who left, by the way. We would take you guys back in a heartbeat. We really would. But let's go with who we of our long list of free agents, who we were able to extend.
The big one, as far as I'm concerned, is Walter Fletcher. Being able to retain his services, I think, is paramount. We saw what he did last year in relief of William Stanback when he went down to injury in week 1. Mm-hmm. Fletch came in and just put up incredible numbers. I mean, he played like his hair was on fire and just helped secure the running back game, as far as I'm concerned. Along with Joshua and Antwi, the two of them were just fantastic. Like they, not perfect by any stretch, but they contributed each and every game. They both put up some very solid, very respectable numbers. And then when William Stanback came back, and I laugh, like initially I called this the three-headed monster, and now it seems like everybody is starting to use that term when it comes to Stanback, Fletcher, and Antwi. This is a three-headed monster, and it's true. I mean, William Stanback. Yeah. I mean, we've known for years what this guy can do, and to have the backup of Fletcher and Antwi, I mean, I'm so excited to see all three of them on the field, all healthy, all raring to go, and knowing that this part of the offense is taken care of, and then some. Definitely puts a smile on my face. I think retaining the services of Walter Fletcher was an absolute must-do, and the Alouettes, they got it right on that one.
Yeah. Speaking, we're talking about it before, but let's talk about our who is going to be right now at least three. Right now seems to be the three guys who will be potentially all under center at some point in 2023.
Well, I mean, we've said his name, Cody Fajardo. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting because I actually, back in December, when...
By the way, do we need to translate Sprinkles to Jesus into French?
That's a good question.
And by the way, do we need to explain that to Al's fans who don't know what that is?
Probably, because I don't know how many Al's fans listens to the Piffles podcast, which they should be because they do a fantastic work.
Yes.
But yeah, and also too, Cody's a big fan of corn dogs, or as we call them here in Quebec, pogos. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting for him. And again, I think as he tries to endear himself to Montrealers, and even on his social media, posted a quick video of him speaking French. I mean,
yes,
okay,
I saw that too. That was amazing.
Yeah, listen. I mean, this is someone who clearly is embracing. He's looking for a fresh start, looking to, like I said, his tenure in Saskatchewan did not end the way that he had hoped, and how most people would have hoped it would have ended. But on to the next. He's now he's a member of the Alouettes, and curious to see how that's going to work out. Especially now that he's got Jason Moss, his offensive coordinator when they were together in Saskatchewan, now as his head coach. Obviously, there was a little bit of vetting going on there. I'm sure Coach Moss had some input as far as in speaking with Danny Maciocia about how he feels he would be a good fit if the opportunity came up to sign him in free agency. And lo and behold, I guess especially with Trevor Harris deciding that he's out of here, here comes Cody Fajardo, and I guess now we'll see if that was truly the case. Is the woes last year when it came to the Riders was the fact that the lack of an offensive line really did it in Fajardo. And I'll tell you what, like this offensive line here in Montreal, if you're just going strictly by the offensive line the last year, already a major upgrade. The fact that the Alouettes made a couple of moves in free agency to help even further bolster that offensive line has to be giving Fajardo a lot of relief. And maybe he won't have to run for his life, as we've often suggested. Fajardo must be a Spanish word for run for your frickin' life. Mm-hmm. But maybe now, with that offensive line in front of him, maybe Fajardo will have a chance to connect with the receivers or hand off the ball to any of the three-headed monster. Who knows? Maybe this is between that and the offensive schemes that Jason Moss will be coming up with. Maybe this could end up being the best move, not just for the Alouettes, but for Fajardo as well. Yeah. So I'm willing to go in with an open mind. I've got some trepidations, I'm not going to lie, but I think if you take a look at his overall body of work, I think Fajardo is a quarterback that put in the right environment. And let's face it, folks, he's not in that pressure cooker anymore. I mean, you go into Saskatchewan and you got to have alligator skin to play quarterback out there. It is not meant for, if you're easily rattled, it's not the place for you. I'm not saying that necessarily that Cody was easily rattled, but there were a lot of times too where I felt like he didn't present himself the best possible way out there. And maybe fans were just, they're so desperate and hungry for more championships that they just put him in a fishbowl that just became too much. Whereas here in Montreal, I'm not going to say that nobody gives a rat's ass as far as the quarterback position goes, because there's been so much turnover in that department. I mean, I think I want to believe the Alouettes fans are going to give him the benefit of the doubt and just say to him, like, just do your thing, man. Just play the game like you know how to play. Mm-hmm. And people are going to leave you alone. People are not going to bother you. People are not going to scrutinize your every single move here in Montreal. Just go out and be the quarterback that you've shown you can be. So yeah, I'm going into this with some cautious optimism. I'm not going to say that this is the best quarterback room in the CFL, as some others may have said online. But
it looks good, though, dude. I mean, hey, we lose we lose the Alouettes leader in rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, and I think third now in league history, and we gain the league's record holder for quarterback rushing touchdowns in a season. That's that's not a bad trade. Picking up Caleb Evans to me was a surprise, but it's a very nice surprise.
Yeah, and I think same situation too. Like he was thrown into the fire in Ottawa when I think it was actually wasn't it when Dominique Davis was there? Like Dominique Davis got injured, and then Caleb Evans was kind of thrown in there with very little experience,
potentially,
and expected to shine right off the hop. Like, no, that takes time. I mean, and I think he'll have that time in Montreal to, if he's going to be dealing primarily with short yardage situations, I'd give him a chance to throw the ball every once in a while. Let him get a few plays in just to, sort of get his feet wet and really get to understand the quarterback position, especially working with Anthony Calvillo. I mean, this could be one of those diamond in the rough kind of players that all of a sudden, like, he finds his form here in Montreal. And I think back to last year, that glorified preseason game against the Argos, when Dominique Davis statistically had probably the best first quarter of CFL football in 2022. And the Red Blacks fans were going, where the hell was this Dominique Davis when he was with us? Like, yeah. Maybe that could happen too now with Caleb Evans. Is he comes to camp, comes in with the right attitude, gets some great tutelage with Fajardo and Anthony Calvillo as his coach. Who knows? Maybe he finds his groove right away and surprises the hell out of everybody yet again. I mean, maybe that's it. Like, maybe Montreal is where Ottawa quarterbacks come to get rehabbed and end up better for the experience.
Yeah, I think what's funny, by the way, is Dominic Davis ends up in BC playing behind VA.
Vernon Adams. It's 2022 all over again.
Something, dude, I swear. Yes, we lose Gino, but we also picked up a very interesting wide receiver, a long-time vet, Greg Ellingson. I mean, just if you check out, it's hard to believe he's been in the league for 9 years, by the way. But still, even at his age, if he's healthy this year, he's gonna be able to help this to hopefully be one of the deep threats that the Alouettes need for 2023.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing I've always admired about Ellingson is he's a DPI magnet. Like, this guy just knows how to get defensive backs, off kilter, and they end up grabbing a hold of him, and boom, defensive pass interference, and that helps move the chains as well. I mean, Ellingson is a pro when it comes to that, so it's going to be good to see him do that for the Alouettes as opposed to doing it for other teams and making Alouette defensive backs look foolish as a result. So I still think Ellingson. I was campaigning for this guy back in 2015. Even I remember even saying to Jim Pop at the general manager times, like, there's no chance you could sign this guy. Like, of all the ex-Tiger Cat receivers, you go with Sam Giguère and not Greg Ellingson. And at the time, Pop had said to me, like, well, Ellingson costs more. I'm like, yeah, but you get what you pay for. Mm-hmm. I mean, and look what happened. Ellingson goes out and wins a couple of Grey Cups, has himself a stellar career. He was felled by injuries last season, but if he's back at 100%, and I'm excited to see how he's going to match up going up against the likes of Keon Julian Grant and Tyson Philpott.
He's going to be a great mentor too, I think. I mean,
I think so too.
Just some of the guys that are on the team, and some of the some of the young guys that we have and who want to make a name for themselves.
I look at this receiving core and it's like, wow, it's almost all deep threats. I mean, we got young guys that are like fast as lightning, great hands. Ellingson, like I said, he can go deep a little bit, but even just, as I said, if he gets those DPI calls, that's going to help move the chains as well. I mean, it's a move that, like I said, I would have liked this, as I said, like 7-8 years ago, but okay, better late than never. He's here now, and I'm really curious to see how he fits in this scheme here in Montreal.
Yeah. By the way, I want to at least ask the question. I know we weren't able to retain him. Mind you, he didn't go anywhere. He didn't actually go anywhere in the CFL. What are your thoughts on Herjamaiala going to the USFL?
Disappointing, because he's a great guy. I think he's a player that I think didn't get a chance to truly showcase everything he was able to here. But there were times too where like he would just pop in out of nowhere and help move the chains with an outstanding catch here and there. And now he's going to go try his luck down south, maybe get the exposure. Maybe I think an NFL contract might be a little too heady for him. But if he can go and get some American eyes on him down at in the USFL, hey, more power to him. And I can't be mad at that. In fact, quite a few, it's amazing. There's quite a few players that decided to go the USFL route, and even a couple went XFL too. Like a lot of people were expecting them to sign and stay in the CFL, but no, they're going to try their luck with the spring leagues down south.
And I know it's not Al's related, but yeah, one big, you're talking about names. One big name was Macbeth.
That's definitely a huge name.
I mean, McLeod, man, trading in 6 figures for 5, but it's family. I understood his reasoning, though.
Yeah, I mean, he won his Grey Cup. He won his championship, which is what he'd been wanting to do as a journeyman quarterback who's bounced around from several different football leagues. He just wanted to win a championship, and he did that with the Argos last year. So he did what he had to do. And now he's going to have a chance to focus on his family, and he'll be a lot closer to home. And he still somehow thinks he's going to get another shot back at the NFL. Unfortunately, at his age, I just don't see it happening. But, what the hell do I know? I mean, stranger things have happened. If we got quarterbacks like Tom Brady playing through their 45, I suppose a 34-year-old can think, it's still got a few years left in the tank. But I don't know. But hey, props to MBT for doing what's best for him, doing what's best for his family. And I mean, yeah, listen, I wish him all the best. I mean, it's a bold move, I will say that. But hey, when it comes to football, you just never know. So, but at the end of the day, he's going to do what's best for him and his family, and you can't be mad at that.
And it's possible he's going to be catching passes from him. What the hell? Because they're on this. They've been assigned to the same team.
Yep.
So yeah. Okay. So if we were to summarize before we get to the glorious extended interview that we had with Danny Maciocia, thoughts on these signings. I mean, we've had some others. I mean, Ciante Evans is another huge name that we were able to pick up.
I'm bringing back actually.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts? I mean, we did lose. Again, we lost Mike Jones. We lost
Adarius Pickett.
That's a big one too. But I mean, overall, what are your thoughts on free agency? I mean, re-signing Reggie White too. So I mean, but what are your thoughts?
No, I think there was a couple of moves that were made that I think will end up paying huge dividends for the Alouettes. I think the key is, though, you can't replace certain players, and you're better off just not trying. Like, you're not going to replace a Geno Lewis, full stop. You really can't. And Greg Ellingson is not replacing Geno Lewis. I mean, he's probably taking his spot, so to speak, in the lineup, but he's not a replacement by any stretch. And I'm sure even Greg Ellingson will tell you the same thing. For me, I think some of the moves that have been made are interesting, and all it's doing is making more excited for training camp to get started, because I want to see is this going to work? The one thing I am very happy about, though, is this O-line, which was already looking strong in 2022. I honestly think it looks a lot stronger with the additions of Justin Lawrence and trading to get Jesse Gibbon. I mean, add that to the studs we already have on this offensive line. And I'm telling you, if that was truly the reason why Cody Fajardo did not have a great 2022 season, was because the O-line sucked out loud, that's not going to be a problem for him in 2023. I think he's going to have more than enough time to get doing what he needs to get done. I think this offensive line is just going to – they're already at a very high level, and I think now they're going to ascend to an even higher level. And if that means creating more lanes for the three-headed monster to run the rock, if it gives up Fajardo a chance to connect with these receivers, realistically, when you look at the offense for this team, there's a lot to like. Is it perfect? No. Is it even going to work? Again, we won't know until training camp. But
exactly,
I look at this team, and yeah, there's a lot to like. There really is. There's a lot to be positive about. As I said, I'm cautiously optimistic as to how this offense works, how it looks so far on paper. Could they win, 10, 12, 14, 18 games? Again, it's way, way too soon to tell. But there's definitely some stuff that you can take a look at and say, all right, I think this could work under the right schemes. And if Jason Moss has the right schemes in place, if that's really what it came down to as far as him and Cody Fajardo working together, is that they could work together. It was just a matter of just not having the right horses in front of them. I think that problem's been solved. In which case, then Fajardo is going to have a heck of a season as far as I'm concerned. So at least that's what one could come to the conclusion to, is that based on that and that alone, yeah, I think between that and being motivated, having that kind of chip on his shoulder about how his tenure in Saskatchewan ended, you never know. It definitely makes for good discussion during this offseason. And as I said, it just wets the whistle for training camp. Like, I want to see these guys in action now. I really want to see if this is going to work. And that's just it. From now until mid-May, all we can do is speculate. We can just take a look at this. We can take a look at the numbers. We can take a look at YouTube clips at previous highlights and what have you, and say, oh, okay, I think there's something here. There could very well be something here. How's it all going to come together? Only time's going to tell.
Exactly. Let us know what you guys think. Let us know on social media. Let us know by emailing us. Let us know by on our Facebook page, whatever it may be. Just let us know what do you guys think of the current roster. But as promised, we're about to. This interview was this absolute gem. We hope you like it. There really isn't much more to say. Let's get right to it. Let's speak with Alouettes General Manager Danny Maciocia.
Joining us online right now is the general manager of the Montreal Alouettes, the one, the only, Danny Maciocia. Danny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Alouettes Flightdeck.
Hey, thank you for having me. How are you guys doing?
All right. Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks for you and for the team. So much has been going on with free agency and all the other major news that seems to be happening around this team. So it's been an interesting time to be an Alouettes supporter.
Yeah, supporter or an employee of the Montreal Alouettes. So interesting times. There's sometimes there's probably other terms that come to mind at times, but interesting would definitely be one of them.
I think that would be the polite way to put it. Would be interesting.
Exactly. I
was about to say, can you actually come up with a time in your other time, whether it be a head coach or a general manager, where something like this has occurred?
Never happened. Never happened before, and and it was definitely a learning experience. There's just so much that you can learn from experiencing what we just went through here the last couple of weeks. But you make reference to the last couple of weeks. I probably would make reference to the last 6 months. In my opinion, there's just been so many storylines around this football team here. The last little while. So, I don't know how to define normalcy anymore, but I'm looking forward to some sort or some form of normalcy here in 2023. But it has been an eye opener, and it has been a little bit of an education, everything that we've experienced, and hopefully we'll be better for it. Put it this way.
For sure. Out of curiosity, you mentioned a story. Obviously the many storylines that have come out in French and English media. Do you think there was one that was very unfair to the Owls and to the Owls organization when that story came out?
Well, I don't know if there was one that was I would deem it to be unfair. There's probably, a few out there that, obviously people are not necessarily privy about what's going on the inside as far as the day-to-day operations and everything that it entails, and some of the challenges that come with it. But like when I make reference to storylines, it's just even if you take a look at the ownership group, even during the course of the season, there were times where you were just wondering, you wake up in the morning and you're reporting to one individual, and by the end of the day, you're reporting to another individual. So that's stuff that's probably not out there, but it's all stuff that we had to deal with and try to keep the team together and try to field a competitive team. And I think for the most part we were able to do so, and that's a credit to the players first and foremost, and also the support staff, everybody that was part of that 2022 edition of the Montreal Alouettes. We really stuck together and saw it through. And, as I sit here, we're probably a converted touchdown away from going to a Grey Cup game. So, considering that we were sitting at 2-6 at some point in time during the course of the season. So, a lot of the credit goes to the people that clearly endured that whole process that we were going through.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, we want to hear what you and the entire crew, you and Eric Delorier and the rest of your crew went through to get together and get all of our new free agents that you signed and current Alouettes that you were able to re-up for free agency. If you don't mind, and we just want to, if we can, we want to just revisit a little bit some of the things that you may have said in the media when you had your press conference a couple of weeks back and talking to the French and English media. But one thing what really stuck out to me that I wanted to see if we could get an answer on, or at least some insight on rather, is that you had mentioned that at one point, right before free agency, you were told via email that you could not spend any money at that time for free agents. Now, my question to you is, did the email come from the estate, or did it come from the CFL that told you to put a kibosh on putting big money towards free agency?
No. So the email did not come just before free agency. The email came during the month of December. I would say probably late December, just before I went out and embarked on a 3-week scouting trip, which took me to Orlando with the Hula and the Tropic Bowl and then the NFLPA in Pasadena and the East West in Vegas. So I would say at the end of December, we were told that we could not sign players that had a financial component attached to it. Now, what does that mean? It means I could have signed anybody I chose or I would choose to sign to a contract, but as long as it didn't have a signing bonus attached to it. And that's when I realized, well, there's something going on here. And so I would say it was probably 6 to 7 weeks prior to the start of free agency, that we were told, or that I was told, that through an email by the estate, by the way, not by the CFL, because the CFL only took possession of the Montreal Alouettes the day free agency started, or probably the night before or the day before. But that email came from the estate.
Okay. All right. Cliff?
Okay. Now, going through, like, when it comes to, you get this email from the estate saying that you can't make any signing bonuses. At that point, like, how do you go into the conversations with the potential free agents and say to them, like, listen, like, do you tell them what's going on? Do you explain to them that we want to sign you, but we can't? Like, how do you broach it with them to try and convince them to stay in Montreal?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we had to, because it was foreign territory, it's something that no one ever experienced previously. We had to develop a strategy that I would call it, going back to my university days at University of Montreal, where you're recruiting players. And that's what we did. We recruited, two that were obviously still on our team. We recruited a whole bunch that were, on other teams when we had that week of communication, which is the week prior to free agency. Tried to explain them the situation. Tried to tell them that, it's a question of time before, we get this ownership piece figured out. Just trust us, just believe in us, just hang in there. We'll have some good news for you. And, and some chose to hang in there with us, and, some others, rightfully so, and I understand why, chose to go elsewhere because they had that guarantee instead of waiting for the unknown, because I couldn't promise them that it was going to happen on free agency, on the day of free agency, or the day before, or the day after. I just didn't know when this was all going to go down and when certain funds were going to be made available to me. And it just worked out that when it happened on free agency, the day of free agency started, all that hard work that was put in prior to that, that's when, we started to just get on the phone and started to call them all up and saying, okay, listen, now here's the deal. We've got some money here. The CFL has taken it over. It's just a question of time before someone else purchases it. So I'm in a better position now to talk contract with you. And we knocked off so many that day, and I don't even remember how many we knocked off that particular day. But it was probably one of the longest days that I've ever experienced, because right now is you've gone from recruiting them to hoping that when you call them that they haven't signed elsewhere, and if they're in the process of signing elsewhere, you're still trying to recruit them and tell them why Montreal should be a destination of choice for them. So it was taxing mentally. But a lot of the credit goes to the guys in the football ops department, because we divvied up the work, and we were able to land quite a few of the ones that we were targeting at that point in time, and we were able to salvage a little bit of the situation that we were that unfortunately we were part of at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Now, a couple of the big name free agents that I think fans were hoping would stay in Montreal but ended up going elsewhere. A lot of the reasons, like the one common denominator, seemed to be that it was the instability within the ownership group that led them to decide to ply their trade elsewhere. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how frustrating is it to essentially feel you had to have felt handcuffed, knowing that you probably wanted to keep these guys or were hoping to keep these guys for any number of reasons, but because of the situation that was put before you, you basically had to watch them leave.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's frustrating. I'm not saying anything that's new. I mean, the frustration wasn't only felt by someone like myself. It was just everybody in general, everybody at the office. There was felt that frustration, like, you sort of feel helpless. What do? We can't even, we can't say anything. We can't do anything. If we pick up the phone, what are we going to tell them? What are we going to tell the agent? And obviously that trickles down throughout the whole organization. And I mean, I'm not oblivious to it. Obviously the fan base must have felt the same frustration, on a different scale, which obviously I understand and I can relate to, because when I would leave the office and I would bump into some people, I was pretty much fielding the same question about what's going on and how we're going to be able to retain such and such, and what's going on with the football team and how does it look, and it was those daily questions. We were taking them throughout that whole period. That was fairly difficult for everybody involved. But having said that, I knew that we would outlive it, outlast it, and it was just a question of time. But I also knew that there was probably going to be, a little bit of pain involved in the process, having lost a few players. Now, you need to understand, when you lose some of your players to other teams, you can start negotiating with them at the conclusion of the season. So I didn't have too much room to negotiate with them. And the closer you get to free agency, you need to understand that those dollar figures will change, and they'll probably be a little bit higher, because now you're not negotiating only with the player and his agent, but now you're also negotiating against possibly 8 other teams. So it becomes a little bit of a bidding war. And I'm not saying they would have signed with us, in December or maybe at the beginning of January. But if they would have, they could have possibly even have signed for a little bit less. Unfortunately, we were never given that opportunity to do so. And then the closer we got to free agency, that's when in my mind, the writing was a little bit on the wall with a few of them. And that's when I came to the conclusion, hey, chances are we're going to have to walk away from these, 3 or 4 individuals. And now the question is internally, how are we going to counteract all of this, and how are we going to go about, replacing some of these assets that are moving on. And like I said, for the most part, I think we did an okay job.
And I agree too. And just out of curiosity, Denny, for a fan who would say to you, well, we understand that you had constraints on what you could spend towards X player. Doesn't the TSN money coming to the team essentially pay for a team's payroll for that particular season? I mean, could you explain any of that to a fan who may say that to you? Just if there was a misunderstanding about what you can and can't do with the money that comes from, say, TSN?
Well, you need to understand, anytime I sign a player, it's got to be approved by a team president. Okay. Mm-hmm. In my case, I didn't have one.
No.
Okay. So when he no longer was there, well, then it's got to be approved by people above him. And that's where it stalled. So TSN money or no TSN money, they don't have to spend it if they choose not to spend it. Mm-hmm. Was the money there? Possibly. Yeah, it possibly was there. But if they're not going to sign off on a contract that's got a financial component of being the signing bonus, it doesn't matter where that money comes from.
Right.
You need that authority before you can actually pay it out. I don't have the authority. No general manager has the authority to single-handedly sign off on a contract without the powers to be that are going to sign off with you.
No, it makes sense. That makes a ton of sense, actually. Yeah, Cliff.
Right. Okay, now let's talk about the players. For example, Trevor Harris goes to Saskatchewan, signs a fantastic deal. At what point did you figure out, like, obviously you said the plan was to get Cody Fajardo as a result, sort of to replace Trevor Harris. At what point did it become evident that Trevor was not going to stay around in Montreal and that you had to go out and get Cody Fajardo?
Listen, as soon as I knew that I was not able to sign anybody, I knew that we were in a little bit of trouble, and I needed a plan. And we, collectively at the office, were able to put a plan in place where, I'll give an example. I would say at the beginning of January, I watched probably all of Cody's games going back to 2019, 2021, and 2022. I watched every single snap, every single throw. And we did the same exercise with a few other players. So I would say early in the year, the new year, I knew that I needed to have a contingency plan because this was a possibility that this could happen, okay, with Trevor Harris. And I did the exercise with a couple of quarterbacks, and a couple of other players at other positions, knowing full well that this was a possibility. So even when we knew we were probably in a little bit of a state of paralysis where, you couldn't move, you couldn't sign anybody, we were still watching a lot of film and drawing up, an opinion or a conclusion on some of the players that we anticipated would still be available at free agency. And if they were, then we needed to have a plan in place on how we were going to, approach them. And we were able to do so during that month. I would say 4 to 5 weeks prior to the start of free agency. We knew exactly who we wanted to target. Did we get them all? No. We got a few of them, including Cody. And but as far as Cody's concerned, I think it was 3 years worth of snaps that we watched. And then obviously we also know that, his former offensive coordinator is our head coach now. So he was involved, in the conversation. And we came to the conclusion that he's probably, our best fit for what we're trying to do offensively this year with the identity that we're trying to create here in 2023.
Okay. Would it be a fair statement to say that the plan really was to retain Trevor Harris, and the being able to add a Cody Fajardo just ended up being just a perfect, I don't want to say substitution necessarily, but maybe plan B might be the best way to put it?
Well, no, I wouldn't call it a plan B. I'm a big Cody Fajardo fan. I don't think what happened last year is a true reflection of who he is as a quarterback. Okay, and I told him this over the phone. Not 1 year that's going to define you as a quarterback. And I said, if I felt that way, then I wouldn't have hired, your former offensive coordinator as our head coach. I look at the body of work. All right, so I look at his body of work. He's won a lot of games. He's probably one throw away. He hits an upright. If he makes that throw in that end zone, chances are he's going off to a great Cup game here, a couple of years back. Last year, they suffered so many injuries. They had some issues, obviously, with the Marino saga that went on. They had COVID issues. They had issues with their offensive line. They gave up 76, 77, 78 sacks. He played with a torn MCL. And I understand that that's a position that the spotlight's on, and it's a position that requires a certain amount of leadership, and he got challenged. It wasn't easy for him, and he played through a lot of that stuff. But I also remember the Cardi Fajardo that went, 9-5 in 2021, or the one that went 13-5 in 2019, and he's almost 30. I mean, he's not 34, he's not 35, he's not 36. He's all of 30. We still think he's got a lot of football in him. He can definitely make things happen when he gets flushed out of the pocket, and he can extend plays with his feet. And had we not signed Trevor early, or at the conclusion of the year, maybe a few weeks, removed from when we played our last game, and we would have gotten to free agency, and that type of money would have been on the table from Saskatchewan, I don't know if we would have signed him. It would have been tough for us to sign him at that amount of money. Is he deserving? Absolutely. But, you're dealing with a salary cap, and you got to try to manage with the best team possible on the football field, and you got to make sure that you've got some elements around them that, obviously they're going to be able to produce, and they're going to give you an opportunity to be, to win football games, because you're not going to be able to win them single-handedly. So I wouldn't call it a plan B. I would just say it's something that just worked out because of circumstances. But even if we had an ownership group, even if things would have worked out, we were going to grade all the quarterbacks that were free agents and give them a grade, because we never know how things are going to evolve with in a negotiation with an agent or with the player, and you need to have another plan in place if for whatever reason you're not able to come to an agreement with your starting quarterback.
Now, obviously, Alouette fans are just ecstatic with the wide receivers that you were able to retain and are coming back in 2023. But you're also, despite our losses, you were also able to bring in a huge name at wide receiver in Greg Ellingson, a longtime CFL veteran. What should these, if people haven't watched him, obviously, because some fans may not have watched Winnipeg games as an example, what should fans look forward to when they see Greg Ellingson on the field next year?
Well, I mean, Greg Ellingson can play. He can play the slot position. He can play as a wideout. He can play to the field. He can play to the boundary. He's been a part of Jason Moss's offenses in the past. I think it was in Ottawa, if I'm not mistaken, and then in Edmonton, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a history there. There's a rapport there. I mean, he's a true bona fide receiver. I mean, he played 8 games last year, 8 or 9 games, if I'm not mistaken, and he had already accumulated about just a shade under 700 yards. So he was on pace for about 1,500 yards. So if he's healthy, which we anticipate that he'll come into camp, and because he does a good job of taking care of his body, and he's out there with some of our younger receivers, with like Phil Potts and Julian Grant. I think we're going to be okay. We got Speaker that's back, and I'm probably going to go to training camp with more receivers than I've ever gone to training camp with, because we got to find 2 or 3 others. And right now, we've signed quite a few. We're still targeting a couple of more here in the next little while. And we want to create the competition where, we're going to be able to identify the next maybe Gino Lewis or Wenicky. And let's not forget, we also found Reggie White a couple of years ago. Now he'll be back. Now he's coming off an injury. He may miss a few games, but we're looking forward to having him in the lineup at some point in time. So going younger and trying to get some stability there over the next couple of years, that's the course that we've chosen. And, if I'm a fan, that's one area that I'm going to, keep an eye on, and with anticipation, just to see who's going to come out of that group, who's going to be those 2 or 3 guys that, that maybe nobody knew about, no different than Reggie White a couple of years ago, that are going to be able to make a name for themselves with the upcoming season.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, since you said it, Danny, at least I have to at least try to get an answer out of you. Do you know where camp is going to be held in 2023?
Oh, that's a good question. We're still working on whether we're going to have it in Montreal or maybe, take it back out. The Three Rivers is definitely an option again. But this is all going to be determined with the new ownership group, which we're hoping, we're going to learn a little bit more here in the next little while. But obviously we need an answer because you just don't book camp the week before you go. There's a lot of work that goes with training camp. So we're hoping that this ownership piece gets resolved so we can determine where training camp will be held.
Okay, Cliff.
All right. Obviously, the rehiring, if you will, by the league of Mario Caccini has, I think, put a lot of fans' minds at ease as far as with all the instability that's going on with the team, knowing that Mario is back sort of overseeing things, even if it is technically on an interim basis. For you, though, how important is it to have him back in the fold as now the league owns the Alouettes?
That's huge for someone like me. I mean, everybody knows how I feel about Mario. I mean, we've got, I don't know if there's another team that has a president and a GM that have the relationship that Mario and I have. I mean, it's as strong as you can possibly imagine. We're definitely aligned on so many different things. He's a huge asset to what we've been able to do here over a short period of time. And, he's a great sounding board for someone like myself. And not having him around, and it was a short period of time. It was about 5-6 weeks that I did not have him around when they chose not to renew his contract. But it felt like an eternity for someone like myself because of that relationship. So, I mean, I'm very happy that he's back. I know that he's carrying the interim tag as we speak. I don't know what the future holds for Mario. But listen, I mean, if I can get an opportunity to do this again with Mario for a number of years, I mean, I'll sign off on it, right now. If for some strange reason it doesn't work out that way, our relationship will still remain intact, and I'm going to wish him the best. And throughout this whole process, even though we were colleagues, more importantly, I think today I'm proud to call him a friend. So it's definitely been a win-win situation for me. But I'm hoping that this relationship can remain intact for the next few years. So we'll see. We'll see what the future has in store for both of us.
And I think Cliff. I think I can speak for Cliff easily. Is that when we think of Mario as an integral part of the team, also like yourself, like Delore, like your entire ops team. He's an integral part because he's able to represent the team when you yourself cannot in certain situations, and he's a perfect fit. And I agree with you. I do hope he loses the interim tag, and I hope he is back for many, many years to come. I agree with you there, Danny.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be the case.
Yeah.
You didn't steal his office while he was gone, did you?
Something I made sure that, and it's interesting that you mentioned that. I made sure, and nobody occupied that office. No one, because I felt, sometimes I was wondering if I was just living a lie, but I felt deep down in my heart that it was a question of time before he would come back, and I just made sure that nobody moved into that office. I said, and I made it crystal clear around the office. I said, this office will remain locked until further notice. And we didn't want anybody to move in there just because anybody could have had their own office or whatever the case may be. That's how I think everybody felt about Mario. We just wanted to see how it was going to play itself out, and. But we did obviously needle him a little bit. We were giving him the gears when he got back, telling him to get to work, and he owed us quite a few hours. He was away for about a month and a half, so we had a good time with him.
We'll just call it a vacation. That's all. It's just a 5-week vacation.
An extended vacation. Exactly.
So are you saying, Danny, that you kept his nameplate nice and safe and then you just handed it back to him when he came back in the office?
Well, I mean, he ended up cleaning up his office, and I was telling him, you don't need to, just leave your stuff here. No one's going to walk in here. And I said, at some point in time, you just come back and you'll find it the way you left it. But so he took everything with him, and he hasn't really brought any of it back now as we speak because of the interim tag. And so, hopefully that nameplate and some of the pictures that he has of his beautiful family will be front and center here in the next little while. We'll see.
Yeah, and Danny, I know you as being one hell of a hardworking man when it comes to football and how dedicated you are to the sport, and obviously to whether it be with you at UDM or here with the Alouettes. Obviously, hearing during your interview with the media that you were, I think I'm paraphrasing, you were this close to potentially just walking away. How frustrating for you as a career football guy must it have been for you to literally have that thought, even if it was for just a split second?
Well, I mean, obviously it was frustrating just because of everything that we went through. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff that we've experienced that's not out there, and that chances are will never be made public. And that's the way it should be. Stuff that happens internally, you want to keep it in-house and you want to deal with it. And then the end of the season comes, and then all this talk with the ownership group, and you feel a little bit, I don't feel helpless. I felt totally helpless going to the office and trying to figure out, trying to project how, moving forward, what we're going to look like in 2023. And it came at a time where, I was doing some traveling. I've got obviously a network of people that I deal with south of the border, and there was at least one very interesting opportunity that did come up, and it had me thinking. And I did say it had me thinking for 30 seconds, but I thought about it for more than 30 seconds, to the point where I had a discussion with my wife, and we talked about it in detail, and it did entail moving, and I spoke to Mario about it too, even while he wasn't there, and that's why I make reference to Mario as being a little bit of a sounding board to me, and I talked to him about some of the frustrations of the opportunity, not knowing what lays ahead here. We talked about it in detail, and I came to the conclusion, and this is no different than when I was at the University of Montreal. I had an opportunity to be a head coach back in the CFL in 2014, if I'm not mistaken, and I chose not to do it and stay at the University of Montreal, and we ended up winning a national championship. To me, this is the job for me as we speak, and this is where I want to be. I want to be I want to be in my own backyard here. I want to share this experience with my family. Experience it with them, go through it with them, and try to bring a championship back to Montreal. If you look at my coaching career, I've been really, really, really fortunate and blessed, and surrounded myself with some pretty good people. Everywhere I've been, I've won a championship, except one place, and that's Montreal. We lost the Grey Cup here in 2000 to the BC Lions in Calgary. So there's a little bit of unfinished business for me here, and I want to see us do well. And part of my I think, part of my legacy will also be to leave it in a better state than I found it in, and that's important for me. I mean, I'm going to be 56 this year, guys. I'm working on the back nine of that, and I can I'm starting to see the clubhouse, So I've only got so many more quality years in me, and I just want to enjoy them here in my own backyard with my family for as long as I can with the Montreal Alouettes, and that's how I feel about this organization. So, that I come close, yeah, I would say I came close. Do I regret not jumping on another opportunity? Absolutely not. Zero. This is where I want to be, and hopefully I can make it work out.
Well, before you get to the clubhouse, we got some cold beverages for you too, Danny, right here. So don't worry about that. We got those all ready for you.
All right. I'm all in.
Yesterday, you had announced some new coaches joining the Alouettes to help flesh out the coaching staff. Talk to us about bringing in guys like Corvey Irvin and Tyrell Sutton, former Alouettes, who now get a chance to lend their experience of not just being Alouette players, but now they have a chance to be, now they have a chance to impart their wisdom as coaches on this team.
Well, I'm excited about some of the names that Coach Moss decided to bring on board. And I mean, the fact that they have ties to the city, the fact that they have ties to this football team, they know, what we're all about. That excites me. And at the same time, he was able to keep the nucleus of our staff in place and add a few new additions. This coaching staff has got a little bit of everything. It's got a few former players. It's got some young and up and comers. It's got some whiskers, some older established coaches, veteran coaches that they've had their share of success in this league. So I think I love the dynamics. I love the what everybody's going to be able to bring to the table. It's a bigger staff than we've had here last year or even the previous year. And I think everybody's going to bring some value add. And I know that they've been meeting here for the last little while. I think they go, I think about 4 times a week, if I'm not mistaken, and they meet virtually. And I know they're going to be in town. I think in the next couple of weeks, they're going to spend a week out here. So I'm looking forward to seeing them all together. And, we're going to have some interesting and long days here in the next couple of weeks before they head back. And then obviously we have the combine and a few other things that lay up ahead. But no, I love it. I love the staff. Like I said, there's a little bit of everything on the staff, and I think it's exactly what we need here this year.
Okay. So these were Coach Moss's hires, not yours?
No, they're not. And I always get a chuckle with all of this, as far as people think that they're my hires. They're not my hires. They're his hires. But like any other place, any other coach will tell you, the GM has to sign off, the president has to sign off, and the ownership group has to sign off. But ultimately, if he feels good about it, we're gonna definitely sign off on it. Except if he's got a checkered past, well, even though you may want him, it's just not going to happen, because we don't want to bring that guy into our community, into our football team, into our locker room. So, but there was 100% consensus on all of these hirings, and Jason hired and actually interviewed and hired every single one of them.
All right, that's fantastic. That's what we want to hear. And as you said, like, these are guys that are part of the community already, and now they get a chance to lead, hopefully, the next generation of Alouettes. So this is definitely exciting times for us.
Yeah, I would say so. Like I said, you've got a little bit of everything on the staff, and that's what excites me, intrigues me, and I'm all about also continuity, having a contingency plan. Good organizations, good companies have a contingency plan as far as who is the next president, who is the next general manager, who is the next director of player personnel, who is the next special teams coach, who is the next coordinator, who is potentially the next head coach. And if you can develop them within your organization, that's what I deem a successful organization. And I'm a firm believer in that. So hopefully, we can do that here in the next few years, that, we don't constantly have to go looking elsewhere to fill a spot or two, knowing full well that we've got some people from within that are qualified, and that all they're looking for is an opportunity.
Okay. All right. Just sort of to wrap this up, as far as you're concerned, are you happy with the team, how it sits, as far as adding potential players, or are you still looking to tweak a couple of areas, or just waiting to see how the combine and draft goes? Like, what's kind of the next couple of weeks? How are you looking at things as far as from a general manager's perspective?
Well, for the people that know me, they know that I'm never happy not that I'm not happy with our football team, but you're always looking to get better. Like we'll go in tomorrow, and we're still going to try to target a few people that we'd like to get. Are we going to get them in the next couple of weeks? I don't know. We may have to wait till after the NFL draft. I give you an example, when they're still going to be on the street, and then they're going to decide, hey, this is maybe an opportunity that we should explore and go up north and play for the Montreal Alouettes, because their negotiation rights belong to us. So, I mean, we're constantly working. We're constantly trying to get better. We've got our nucleus of players that we've identified that are going to come to camp. But I would say we're probably between 5 and 8 more players. Probably 8 more players that we would add between now and the end of training, between now and at the end of the NFL draft. So at the end of April, that we'd like to target and have them come to Montreal. And those 8, that's excluding the CFL draft. So the CFL draft, that's a totally different piece. But if we can find maybe a couple of more receivers, looking for maybe a couple of more defensive backs, another rush end, another interior defensive back, another offensive tackle. I mean, our offensive backfield, our running backs, I think we're quite solid. I think we have a pretty good group there. Quarterback, we're up to 4 with the signing of Mike Glass today. So would we bring a 5th arm? I don't know. Probably we'll only go with 4. But if it's one guy that's on our neg list that comes available, we'll probably bring a 5th. But so we're looking at about another 7 to 8 players plus, the CFL draft, and then that should get us to our quota of number of bodies that we can go to training camp with.
Wow. So essentially, a general manager's work is never done.
No, because you're not only planning for 23. What people don't realize is that you're planning for 24, because you know who's under contract till 24. You know who's coming up at the end of the year. Age is going to be a factor. Injuries are going to be a factor. Salaries are going to be a factor. So we have to put a plan in place. And that's why we go to East-West. That's why we go to the NFLPA. That's why we go to Tropic Bowl, the CGS, and the WHO. These are players that are not necessarily going to be in Montreal in 2023, but could be here in 2024 or 25. So you constantly have to, look ahead, knowing full well that you need to address today. You want to have a competitive team. You want to have a team that's going to, hopefully compete for a championship. And knowing full well that there's going to be changes at the end of that year too, and you got to make sure that you've got answers in place to, basically to fill up those cupboards again with players that are going to give you the same opportunity to potentially win another championship.
Yeah. By the way, this is kind of an aside, Danny, because it's something I wanted to ask you earlier, but I don't know if you'll be able to answer it. Obviously, with the new CBA this year, 7-year CBA, it's added some interesting wrinkles that you should be able, all general managers could take advantage of. Without obviously naming names, we know of one. Was there more than one Alouette that you guys negotiated guaranteed money to? Just out of curiosity.
Guaranteed money,
meaning like in a third year. Yeah, that type of thing.
Well, it's usually you can only offer guaranteed money to a player that's been in your program for 2 years.
Okay.
So in our case, we gave guaranteed money to 2 players.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 players. That's what we were able to do. But they have to be in your program for the last 2 years. So if they've been on 1-year contracts, you can't give them guaranteed money. If you go get them from another team and you bring them into your program, you cannot give them guaranteed money. They actually have to be in your program for 2 years. So if you sign a free agent for 2 years, well, the next contract that you do, then you can possibly start talking guaranteed money. But you have to be very strategic with guaranteed money.
Oh, for
that's
sure.
Money that's going to count on the cap. So you better make sure that you're able to envision that he'll be a part of your football team for the next 2 years. So whenever I do stuff like that, or before I sign someone, I'll talk to the coaches and I'll make sure that if we're going to do this, it's because we envision that he'll be here for the next 2 years. And where that's good from a fan perspective is that you can continue identifying with some of these guys that are coming in and they're going to stick around for a few years instead of being what I call them one and done.
Yeah, and thanks for the clarification, Danny, because with this, the finalized CBA not being available to the general public, having you to be able to give us that tidbit on that inside look at the CBA and what you're able to use, I greatly appreciate it because it's something I didn't know.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure because, and it's all about educating, the fan, because, we talk about guaranteed contracts, but, what is guaranteed? And don't forget, you can only guarantee up to 50% of the contract. You can't guarantee the whole contract. And so it's up to 50%. So you can go from 5, 10% all the way up to 50.
Okay.
So that's the maximum you can guarantee. Yep.
Okay, good to know. Cliff.
All right. Well, Danny, we definitely appreciate you joining us for this. I guess to sort of take us home, I guess I know fans were worried about everything that's been going on up until free agency. I think things have gotten a little bit more clear now. I mean, despite not knowing who the next owner of the Alouettes are. What else could you say to your average fan right now that's still a little hurt by what's gone on, but just sort of to help reassure them that things are on the right track?
Well, first, I appreciate their support. I feel their pain. I can tell you that I was experiencing it with them throughout this whole ordeal, and I'm sure you guys noticed. I just went quiet and avoided making any statements publicly, just because there was nothing we can do. First, and secondly, I just wanted to make sure that we had a contingency plan in place when things were going to be a little bit clearer for us. I think 2023 is going to be an interesting year. This is going to be a pretty good football team. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly we can come together. And if we come together the way I think we will, I think this team potentially could surprise some people. And yes, we did lose some major pieces. But I'm also of the opinion that you have to embrace change because change is inevitable. It's just a question of time before, you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to address it. Did we think that we would have to address all these changes in 2023? No, but we knew there were going to be some. So chances are we were dealt, probably a little bit of a shitty hand in the sense that, we probably had to deal with many more changes than we wanted to. But sometimes that's not all bad. There's going to be some opportunities that are going to present themselves for some young players, and we're hoping that they're going to cash in on it. We still, when I take a look at our football team, our offensive line, I think, has gotten better. You look at our Canadian content, we're much deeper there. Our running backs, those are pretty good backs that we've got there, and Standback and Fletcher, Natui, and Rose. And I think we got Howard also on the contract. Our quarterback situation, I'm a big fan of Cody. Evans is going to be a short yardage specialist. I think he had 15, 16 touchdowns last year. And Davis Alexander could be the future of the Montreal Alouettes. We'll see how he evolves here in the next little while. The receiving core, yes, we are a little bit younger. We'll see how that, how that comes about during training camp. I think our D-line is still going to be active. I like our linebacking core with the addition of Williams in the middle, and our secondary is probably better. Our kicking game is pretty solid. We have a returner back, so I think we're going to be okay. We're going to be young at a couple of positions, but sometimes that's not all bad because those guys are going to go at 100 miles an hour, and even when they're going to make mistakes, they're going to make them at 100 miles an hour. And when you make mistakes at 100 miles an hour, sometimes good things happen. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But I'm excited. I'm excited about going to training camp. I want to see exactly, what kind of football team we're going to have when all is said and done after those 2 preseason games. And I would tell our fan base to come out and check it out, and they'll come to their own conclusions.
Well said. Well, since we're talking about change, Danny, can't help but notice your Twitter name is still DMAC Coach. Is there any plans to change it to DMAC GM?
I didn't even pick that. That's my that was my I think it was my youngest when I was at the University of Montreal, and I try to discourage them not to be too active on social media. I know that I've cut back significantly, but yeah, it's a thought. Yeah, DMAC GM. There you go. There's a thought. But people still call me coach, and the bulk of my work has been as a coach. So chances are, even if I do change it, they'll still call me coach.
It's like being a chef, right? They still call you chef no matter what. So
exactly.
Actually,
I could be getting called worse. You know what I'm saying?
Actually, if anything, Cliff, he should just add an A to the end of it, and he would be D Maciocia.
Maciocia. There you go. There you go.
Okay.
There's an idea now. There's an idea.
There you go.
If I share that, it'll probably get done by the end of the evening.
All you got to do is add the letter A.
That's right. There's an idea. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Good.
Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining us on the flight deck this evening. We definitely appreciate it. We're definitely looking forward to seeing you at training camp and seeing how all of this unfolds when it's all said and done. We're definitely excited to see how this team's going to come together. And again, we wish you all the success for the rest of this offseason and going into camp.
Yeah, well, listen, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at camp. Looking forward to seeing a lot of Alouettes fans come out to training camp and seeing them at the stadium. And I'm hoping we can make them all proud. How does that sound?
Well, again, I joked on social media, Cliff, well worth the wait, the extra week. We did have him scheduled for last week, but obviously with you getting sick, we had to push it when, thanks for the Alouettes organization for allowing us to do that, and for Danny Mac also. So much information that we wanted to find out. He was, being able to give us some tidbits on the collective bargaining and how that works with guaranteed money and just so much information from that glorious 40+ minute interview.
Mm-hmm. And I think what really came through more than anything else is you could sense the frustration that Danny was going through, and he sensed it from all of us as well. Like, he sensed it from Alouettes Nation that, hey, what the hell's going on? Like, why can't we do anything? And he's wondering, why can't I do anything? Like, it's a tough situation. Like, I mean, it's essentially a no-win situation too, because, you take a look at what happened, but the fact that he had a plan, he had a contingency plan. He said, okay, I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm going to do what I do best. And that's, find the talent and sign the talent. And for the most part, as he said, he thinks he did an okay job, and I'm inclined to agree with him. I think, we won't know until training camp goes, folks. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is we got to see how this, signing all these players and seeing how they come together in camp, on the field, and so forth. And I got to say, I'm so pleased that we were able to speak with Danny Maciocia and get his insights on this. And folks, I think we learned quite a bit in this interview.
Oh yeah, 100%. The big news of the week that came from the Alouettes is the Owls have finalized their coaching staff, and I know you and I talked about this in our pre-show meeting, but I honestly did not see one of our new coaches coming to the Owls, but you just had that inkling that we were going to get somehow Sutty back as one of our coaches, and sure enough, it was announced that Tyrell Sutton has joined the Alouettes as a running backs coach, and that's really, really cool. I mean, it's interesting to see all these players, former players, come back and be coaches on the team.
Yeah, and that's one thing with the Alouettes is, if you're a beloved figure here, they will find a spot for you. They will find you a home here in Montreal. And you see it. I mean, already. I mean, you've got Anthony Calvillo as the OC/quarterback coach. You've got Luc Brodeur-Jourdain as the offensive line coach. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, like if you've got someone that's dedicated to the craft, as Tyrell Sutton was. I mean, we saw him as a player and played absolutely fantastic football. He really put in his time here in Montreal. So much so he loved the city so much that he decided to stay here year round and, started a family here. And now he is pretty much a Montrealer for all intents and purposes. So I'm just beyond excited to see him here. And it was kind of funny when Andre Bolduc, the former running back coach, decided that he wanted to pursue opportunities elsewhere. I had kind of jokingly said to Suddy, like, dude, get your resume ready because all of a sudden Montreal needs a running back coach. He's like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. And then lo and behold, the Alouettes hired Tyrell Sutton as running back coach. Like,
yeah, because we saw Suddy twice last year on the post game on the field. So it's pretty fitting, dude. It really is.
Yeah, I'm so happy for him. Like, this is someone that you could tell wants to still be a part of the city, wants to be a part of this organization again, and here he is now at running back coach. I mean, and what a treat for him. I mean, for him to be able to coach William Stanback, Walter Fletcher, and Joshua Antwi, he's got to be foaming at the mouth with excitement. He's got to be just so jacked. Like, he too probably was like, is it June yet? Can we get to camp now, please? Can we get going now? You can just tell with Suddy, like that's just his attitude, right? He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's passionate. I just know that he's going to do fantastic work here in Montreal, and I'm so excited for him.
Oh, I agree. Give us some other thoughts on some of the other new coaches that obviously bringing back LBJ again, and we're talking about former Owls. Technically Jason Moss is a former Alouette.
This is true.
Technically, 2007. So
you're absolutely right. He is a former Alouette player, and yes, now he's the head coach. You're absolutely right. Another hire that I'm very, very happy about is Corvée Irvin is now the defensive line coach. He also played for the Alouettes. He was only here for a couple of years, but was a very solid addition. Much like Suddy, fell in love with the city of Montreal, staying here year round. He was even with the Concordia University Stingers, helping them out. I guess just waiting for an opportunity like this, and I'm very excited for him. Just a great dude. Definitely knows his football as well. Just a beast when it comes to the defensive line. And just when you think about the horses that are on this D line already, and he too has to be just jacked at the prospect of being able to coach up these guys. And I'm excited. Again, I'm as excited as I am for Suddy to be running back coach. I'm very excited for Corvée to be the defensive line coach, and I know he's just going to shine in this role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's again just a few tweaks here and there. I'm pretty happy with what we currently have. So I mean, I'm not much to complain because it's these guys can do their jobs, and I'm all for it. By the way, interesting change in the football ops staff with Alison Sobel being named the manager of football ops. I mean, to be elevated from being Alouettes administration and within the Alouettes administration and community relations departments the past 2 years, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I think kind of following the footsteps of when Catherine Reich. She kind of got her start as an intern in the Alouettes organization, made her way all the way up to assistant general manager. And look where she is now in the NFL. Like, she is very close to becoming a general manager in the National Football League.
No kidding, eh?
I have to wonder if Alison Sobel has seen her career path and saying, you know what, I can do that too. And lo and behold, put in the time, did the work, and now manager of football operations for the Alouettes. That's pretty incredible. I mean, and that's not necessarily replacing Eric Delorier, because now he is the senior director of football operations / player personnel. So if I imagine now he'll be working hand in hand with Alison, and I think we already know what we've come to expect from Eric Delorier as far as in a administrative role, and the players that he's been able to find and help maintain and retain their services. So, as they say, the rich get richer. So, I mean, now he's going to be given more responsibility, no doubt. And I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that things are going to stay the course, if not get better, as it comes to when it comes to like finding those diamonds in the rough, those next great Alouettes players that are going to replace the superstars that we ended up losing in free agency.
Yep, sure. And you know what? With all honesty, Cliff, just the story alone itself, maybe having Allison on just explaining her career path might be a very good interview for a future show.
It could be. And that's what we're here, folks. We want to explore all the avenues for the Alouettes. We don't want to just focus on players. I mean, yes, players are, it's definitely important to get their perspective on things, but we want you to understand and appreciate just how the entire team is run. That's why we want to have like guys on like Eric Delorier and Danny Maciocia and so on and so forth. We want you to understand just how this entire team as a whole dynamic works. And that's our goal here, is to help shed the light on things that you probably wouldn't necessarily thought of otherwise. I mean, it's cool to have players on. Don't get me wrong. We're always very excited to talk to players, but we see this team as a whole and a whole entity, and we want to understand all the parts that make this team run. So that's our goal this year, is to really hopefully help educate and make you folks understand kind of the inner workings of this franchise. This is one of the reasons why we had Danny Maciocia on, because we wanted to understand his feelings about free agency, how the whole process goes, and especially given the major wrinkle that was kind of thrown in there with the ownership, change, if you will. So we were happy to get his perspectives on things, and we're very happy to bring that perspective for other members of the administrative organization here as well. Yeah,
exactly. No, I completely agree with you, dude. Again, a huge thank you to Danny Maciocia for joining us on the show. It was well worth the extra week. But obviously, we're getting that goal to 200 shows. We're well on our way. I think we had the right schedule that we wanted to, so give us anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks for our next show. We have a couple of things in mind that we want to try to do, but we'll stay tuned to social media, right, Cliff? And maybe we'll tease what we want to do for the upcoming shows.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, we've got the Combine coming up later this month, so I mean, I'd like to shed a little bit of light on that if possible. Maybe have someone from the team on to kind of go through that process for fans that don't know what the Combine's all about. I mean, is it really just a bunch of kids running around in their underwear trying to impress to get a job in football, or is there more to it? Let's explore that a little bit, and then that will obviously lead into the draft, and then finally, after all these months of waiting, training camp is on the horizon as well. I mean, now that I won't say the dust is completely settled on free agency. I mean, the team could still be bringing in a couple more players here and there, but we know pretty much what to expect now this year. We've got a bit of an idea of what's to come for 2023. So it's now just a matter of, we're tired of, playing games on paper. We want to see some honest to goodness action, and that's going to come. It's just now, at this point, all we can do is just sort of speculate, play armchair GM. Is this move going to work? Who do we think is going to team up best as far as, as the depth chart goes and how the lineups face off?
Yeah.
There's a lot to consider here. I mean, we have to remind ourselves, though, Tim, it's only March.
I know.
We're close. The worst of it's over, I think. I mean, I think we've gotten through.
Let's find out who the new owner is. To me, that's the next big step.
Well, and hopefully that'll be sooner rather than later. But with that in mind, again, I cannot overstate the CFL truly has to vet the next ownership group properly.
Oh, I
don't
agree.
Get dazzled. Don't fall for the dog and pony show. We just want some stability. Is that really so much to ask?
No.
Is that really so much to ask? I don't think so.
Not at all. We're hoping to bring you that information, and obviously, when everybody else finds out about it, and we're curious as much as everybody else is, obviously. So we'll be back very soon. Reach out to us on social media if you want to chat us up. We'd love to talk about Alouettes football, anything CFL, or whatever topic comes across your mind. But we're more than welcome to chat with you guys over on all of our socials. So we'll be back soon. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. One final approach.